Did you know that there's something inside you that controls you without your knowledge? No, I'm not talking about MK Ultra mind control or some Star Trek parasite that attaches itself to your brainstem. I'm talking about a psychological parasite that does things without your permission. So don't touch that screen and you'll learn all about this thing, but also how you can take control back. Yes, I'm going to teach you what it is, who has one, why you should know about it, the different types that exist, and what happens when you suppress it. But also, most importantly, what happens when we accept it. You didn't think I'd say that, did you? Accept it. But just watch and learn. You're going to look through drawers and go through the minds of Moria. Yeah, you'll learn a lot about yourself by the end of this short video. The value you can take from just a few minutes of your life will affect it for the better in ways you can't even imagine yet. So what is the shadow self? So this psychological parasite, as I called it, is actually what the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung called the shadow self. But who is Jung? He was one of Freud's most promising mentees. Jung was referring to the hidden parts of ourselves. So in Jungian psychology, the shadow refers to the parts of you that are out of conscious awareness. These are your base, primal, chaotic, impulsive parts. The things your ego suppresses and hides from you because they're ugly, terrifying, narcissistic, painful, aggressive, greedy, embarrassing, or shameful. They are the things you would never want to see in yourself because they conflict with your values or the values of society. So these instincts, qualities, desires, urges, impulses, or feelings are buried into a part of you that is hidden and will remain hidden to you unless you look at your shadow self and learn about it and from it. So do we all have a shadow? In short, yes. Jung said, unfortunately, there can be no doubt that man is, on the whole, less good than he imagines himself or wants to be. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. This means it forms an unconscious snag, thwarting our most well-meant intentions. Yes, we all need the shadow because it is where our egos can push all the stuff that we think is too threatening, uncomfortable, or harmful to us. Imagine you receive a horrible letter from someone you believe treated you badly. In the letter, they're saying lots of awful things about you, how you're a disappointment and should be ashamed of yourself. You screw up the letter and chuck it in the drawer and forget about it. Now, you don't have to be reminded of it, do you? It's out of sight and out of mind. In this example, the letter contains shadow traits, and you are playing the role of your ego, which does a good job of filing it away into your unconscious mind, specifically the drawer. Yes, you guessed it, your shadow. We all have this function and ability. It's fantastic at what it does, and it protects us from that which will make us feel bad. But there's a downside. We're unable to learn about our pain points, the parts of us that might benefit from some mining. So, why do we need to know about our shadow self? Let's take a relatively contemporary way of looking at it. In The Lord of the Rings, we can think of the minds of Moria as the unconscious. The Fellowship, our conscious self, must enter the minds and face the Balrog. This is our shadow. It's repressed and suppressed because it's terrible and could do a lot of harm. It's angry, tyrannical, dangerous, impulsive, violent, destructive, and terrifying. But according to Jung, to know oneself is to know one's shadow. Sometimes we must travel a deep, dark, winding, and challenging path to get out the other side, just as the Fellowship did. And so the journey continued toward their greater goal. So we all have a responsibility to ourselves and those we love to consider the shadow self, because only then can you bring it to your conscious mind and know the parts of you that are stunting you. This will allow personal growth by accepting and integrating your shadow. Yes, the shadow doesn't just contain the parts about you that you would deem bad. It also houses the good of you that you have been unable to perceive in this way because you've been criticized or shamed about these aspects. For example, imagine a child talking to her family and suddenly her mother blurts out, "Wow, I didn't realize how crooked your teeth are." Since then, this child has found it hard to smile fully because she's become self-conscious. So in her shadow lies her smile. She cannot smile with abandon, cannot be present in moments that would evoke a true and genuine smile because she's very conscious about lifting her hand to her mouth or staying quiet. This takes away from the ability to experience true joy. How sad, right? So just imagine this is just one way someone can improve their existence. What else might there be to learn, and what might come of this learning for you and your relationships, opportunities, and overall well-being and life? So now we're going to talk about how negative emotions affect the shadow self. The shadow self is affected by negative emotions in a few ways. Firstly, because your shadow is made up of the parts of you that you disapprove of or find reprehensible. But this means you will notice the same traits in others. So just think about some of the qualities or attributes that you see in others that you don't like. Jung tells us that the reason you may have a strong reaction to these traits is because they're the parts of you that you've pushed into your shadow. An example of this might be someone who is actively homophobic. They denigrate gay people and may even go as far as committing hate crimes against them. This person may be hiding their homosexuality from themselves because whenever the subject of being gay has been discussed within their family or peer groups, they've heard derogatory and upsetting things. So the shame they internalize and the disappointment they believe others will feel cause them to hide apart from themselves. Indeed, the way we've appraised something affects what goes into our shadow. If we deem it to be bad or threatening to our psyche in some way, it's going in the drawer. So let's see, what are the types of shadow selves? Now, although there are shadow types and systems of shadow types mentioned on some websites, it's important to know that Jung himself did not create a formal system of shadow types. There are, however, things in the shadow that we might call qualities, traits, or feelings that are deemed undesirable or unacceptable based on one's own beliefs or values, or those of society. And these are what are termed as types of shadow selves by some people. These shadow selves are personality traits in effect and may include things like envy, ego, greed, neurosis, prejudice, hate, or aggression. Some shadow systems may give these personality types names like magician, maiden, and so on, each with their own attributes. So what happens when you suppress your shadow self? So Jung wrote, "A man who is possessed by his shadow is always standing in his own light and falling into his own traps, living below his own level." When you suppress your shadow self, you perpetuate friction and conflict within yourself, and it continues to impact your life in very real and limiting ways. For example, you will remain unaware of the undesirable and unacceptable parts of you that you will keep unconsciously projecting into other people around you, and this creates problems in relationships. Who hasn't heard of the person who cheats and is prone to jealousy? They project their untrustworthiness onto others in a general sense, but especially in romantic relationships. This person is often unaware that their suspicion of others is due to their own untrustworthiness because it's in their shadow. So they will genuinely believe others cannot be trusted. Thus, The risk of a suppressed shadow means we feel and behave unconsciously, and this could manifest as defensiveness, possessiveness, anger, and aggression. Our ego will compensate by creating false narratives like others cannot be trusted. This makes us feel validated, effectively enabling our shadow, but keeping us in the dark and perpetuating destructive behaviors that ruin relationships, for example, and mean we struggle in life. So what happens when you accept your shadow? Confronting the shadow self, whether that's via formal or informal shadow therapy, or by doing your own work, offers your shadow self meaning. It means you are no longer ignoring a big part of you, and you are able to do some digging into your psyche and mine gold. When I say gold, I say this not simply because you will find some wonderful parts of you that were unfairly relegated to your shadow self due to the erroneous messages you internalized. No, also because by confronting the aspects about you that you or others deem undesirable or unacceptable, you can accept and integrate them. You will experience difficulty along the way, because these are parts of you that you've pushed down for good reason. But by facing pain and delaying pleasure, you will experience true pleasure. Because when you know yourself, you can choose who you truly wish to be and live your truth. So it's really important to do this. Subscribe and you'll be notified of part 2 to this video, which offers tips about how to access your shadow self.